I never expected a billionaire would turn his jet around for a struggling single mom. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The clouds hung low that morning, the grayness wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. My heart raced as I stood by the road, my trembling hands clutched a threadbare sign that read, "Please help." The tears streamed down my face, unchecked and burning. Around me, life carried on, oblivious to my silent scream. Cars whizzed by without a second glance. I was supposed to have a plan. I was supposed to find a job, make everything right for my son, Ben. My little boy deserved better than this. But every time I thought things might change, I felt the weight of the world crushing my hopes. That day, I'd been out there for hours, hair in a messy bun, the chill creeping into my bones. My stomach growled louder than my thoughts, a cruel reminder of our empty fridge back home. Then, as I wiped my tears with the sleeve of my coat, a sleek black jet broke through the clouds above me. It was like a dark bird cutting through a sky too heavy to breathe. My heart pounded in an entirely different rhythm. I watched, entranced. The sound of its engine roared like a distant storm. It felt unreal. Would it really land here, in my world? Just for a moment, the chaos around me faded as my imagination swirled with thoughts of what might happen next. If sensing my gaze, the plane tilted, dipped lower, the engines roaring in a cacophony of power. My breath caught. It couldn't be. It turned. The shadows of the plane stretched across the pavement as it circled back. What kind of billionaire would change their flight path for a moment like this? A sudden gust of wind bit through me, shaking my core. Fear and disbelief tangled in my gut. There I was, just a struggling mom, my life in disarray, yet somehow this jet was choosing me. I squinted against the sunlight breaking through the gloom. As the plane landed, dust rose in a golden dance around it, and I felt a spark of hope ignite within me. Maybe this was my chance, but what if it was all just a dream? The door opened, and a tall figure stepped out, silhouetted against the bright sky. He was impossible to read, dressed in a tailored suit I could only imagine. His stride was confident, purposeful. I stood frozen, heart pounding against my ribs, breath hitching in my throat as he approached. "Is this where I find you?" he asked, his voice smooth yet commanding. I blinked, my mind racing. Who was he? Why was he here? The moment felt surreal, like stepping into a scene from a movie where the impossible unfolds. Was he really sent here for me? Or was this just coincidence, a billionaire's whim? Before I could answer, a hush fell over the crowd that had gathered. Eyes widened, whispers spread, fingers pointed. I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, my body tensed in embarrassment. Did they expect me to say something profound? Did I even know what was happening? And then, without warning, he reached into his pocket. My heart pounded louder than before. The world around me faded as I braced for what might come next. "Here's the deal," he started, and everything seemed to hang in the air like a tether to the unknown. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment stretched on as he looked into my eyes, a stillness settling over us like a fragile glass. His gaze was piercing, yet it held something deeper, a hint of understanding. I could hardly grasp the enormity of the situation. A billionaire was standing before me, in my world, and all I could think of was Ben. "Tell me your name," he said, his voice gentle now, like a quiet reassurance in this storm of uncertainty. "Clara," I managed to reply, the name almost unfamiliar on my tongue, as if the weight of my circumstances made me question who I truly was. "Clara," he repeated, like he was tasting it. "I'm Alex." "Let's talk." That I hesitated, watching him expectantly. The way he spoke made it seem like he saw more than just an outstretched hand begging for help. He saw a person, a mother. "I'm not sure what you want," I stammered, my nervousness creeping back. "I want to help," he said, his sincerity washing over me like a wave. "But first, let's get you some food. You must be starving." That I could almost hear my stomach growling in agreement. I glanced at the crowd behind me, still frozen in disbelief. Were they all judging me? Did they think I was about to be saved by a fairy tale prince? He gestured to a sleek, black SUV that waited nearby, with a driver already stepping out to open the door. "Come on, Clara. I know a place. You can tell me everything, or just about what you need." That I searched his face for some hidden agenda, waiting for a catch that might spring on me, but he looked earnest. I wondered how many times he'd extended this kindness before, how many other stories he had been a part of. Swallowing my fear, I climbed into the car next to him. As the vehicle sped through the streets, I tried to find the right words, but nothing came. Sitting beside a billionaire felt surreal, like I was suspended in some sort of fantasy. I could see flashes of my former self in the reflection of the window, a determined mother, fiercely protective yet utterly defeated by circumstance. "Ben, he's my son," I said finally, the mention of his name bringing a swelling emotion to my throat. "You love him," Alex stated, almost like an affirmation. The way he said it suggested he understood. "More than anything," I replied, a mixture of gratitude and fear welling inside me. "But I can't seem to make this work. I lost my job, and it feels like everything is falling apart." Alex nodded, the understanding in his eyes deepening. "I've seen that happen too many times. It's harder for some than others." His tone shifted, laced with something I couldn't quite place. "Are you willing to accept help?" No strings attached. I looked at him, reading the sincerity emanating from his every word, and for a moment, a flicker of hope ignited within me again. I don't know. What kind of help? Let's start with a job. I can connect you with some people who might need someone like you," he said. "And if you're open to it, we can talk about more. Education, even some resources for single parents." That my heart raced at the prospect, but a question loomed. What did he want from me in return? "Why me?" I asked, needing reassurances, needing clarity. "You have everything. Why would you care about helping me?" He glanced out the window, the city flying past like a blur. "Everyone deserves a chance, Clara. Everyone deserves kindness. I was once in a place where I felt hopeless too, and I know how much a little help can change a life." His words hung in the air, tender yet powerful. For a moment, I saw not just a billionaire, but a man who understood anguish. Suddenly, the words of my mother echoed in my mind, a whisper of caution about trusting strangers. My heart raced, torn between the fear of trust and an overwhelming desire to believe in something good. As the car pulled into a quaint little cafe, I summoned the courage to step out, feeling like I was crossing an invisible boundary. Alex held the door open for me, and a part of me hesitated before taking that step into a world that still felt so foreign. Inside, the aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods wafted around us, pulling me into a comforting realm. I noticed. The barista smiled warmly at us, and in that moment, something flickered inside me. Maybe this new connection wouldn't be like before. Maybe it could be built on hope. Just as we sat down, the sound of my phone buzzing in my purse broke the peace, and I flinched. I fished it out, dread creeping through me as I glanced at the screen. It was a message from my landlord, and when I read it, my heart dropped. "You need to pay by tomorrow, or your rent is past due." No, I breathed out in shock, feeling the walls begin to close in. I glanced at Alex, who was watching me intently. I didn't want to unravel in front of him, didn't want him to witness the very storm I was trying to escape. But a fearful pit opened in my stomach. Could this chance be slipping through my fingers already? "Clara, what is it?" he asked, concern igniting the air between us. That I could feel the tears brimming again, brimming for all the dreams I had for Ben, all the hope that seemed so fragile now. "I can't. I might lose my home," I whispered, my voice breaking as the weight of reality crashed back in all at once. That I looked at him, and somehow, in that moment of distress, I hoped he still believed in me enough to lend a helping hand as I prepared to potentially push away the one glimmer of light that had come my way. Would kindness be enough, or was this just going to be a fleeting chance on an already spiraling path? His expression shifted, determination igniting behind his eyes. "Let's talk about it," he said with quiet resolution, and find a way through this together. But just then, my phone rang, and the burning sensation of dread intensified as I saw the caller ID flash. It was my mother. The answers from her were neither expected nor welcomed, and in that aching tension, I realized we were about to step into a different storm, one that could change everything again. My heart raced as I stared at the phone, torn between a desire to answer and an instinct to flee. The regret of childhood regrets washed over me as I remembered her words, the chilling reminders of a woman who never did quite understand. It was a cycle, a dance of dysfunction I had hoped to escape for Ben's sake. Clara? Alex's voice drew me back to the moment, his concern palpable. You don't have to answer it, he said softly, and he seemed to sense the weight of my inner turmoil. But ignoring the call felt like ignoring a tempest that was bound to reach me eventually. Taking a deep breath, I tapped the screen to accept the call, each chime of the ringtone echoing the tiny voice of dread inside me. Mom? I said, my voice tentative, filled with an unease that had become too familiar. Clara, we need to talk about Ben. I saw your message and she started, her tone already teetering on the edge of judgment. Here it came. What do you want, Mom? I interrupted, feeling the thrum of irritation bubble beneath my skin. Her sharp intake of breath was a reminder that my irritation had always been met with her indignant disappointment. I want to help, Clara. But you need to understand that living like this isn't good for him. You're struggling, and two want you to come home. It's not safe out there, no. I exclaimed, my voice rising above the clatter of the cafe. This is my life, Mom. I can't just pack up and come back to the same darkness that swallowed me whole. Next to me, Alex shifted, his presence a steady anchor in the turbulence of emotions. I glanced at him, his expression urging me to breathe, to find composure amidst my crumbling resolve. You're better off with me watching Ben, Clara. You've always been reckless. Remember when enough? I snapped, the words escaping before I could rein them in. I'm not that girl anymore. I'm a mother who's fighting for her child. There was a pause, a thick silence that bridged the jagged spaces between us, and in that moment, I could almost sense the widening crevice of disappointment stretching inside my mother's heart. Please, please just think about it. It's hard for me to see you this way that I don't want your pity. I shouted, then quickly glanced around, embarrassment flooding my cheeks as the barista looked up, surprised. I don't want to go back. I'm trying, Mom. I'm trying so hard to make this work. My voice trembled, and as my mother started to respond, I cut her off again. If you really want to help, then support my choice, not your vision of who I should be. I am just worried about you, she replied, the concern bleeding into despair. You've always rushed into the deep end without knowing how to swim and am terrified that one day you'll drown. Before I could respond, I felt Alex's reassuring hand on my shoulder, his gentle squeeze anchoring me in a moment that had begun to swirl into chaos. The words hung heavy between us, a reminder of the years spent searching for approval that often remained out of reach. I was longing for validation, yet repelled by the very idea of returning to that place where understanding held more thorns than flowers. I need to go, I muttered, and with shaky resolve, I ended the call before her words could dig deeper. The moment I put my phone down, the cafe suddenly felt louder, the air thick with my uncertainty. I fumbled my cup, almost spilling its contents onto the quaint wooden table. Hot frustration bubbled within me, a concoction of rejection and defiance intertwining as I fought back tears. Clara, Alex said, his voice firm yet soothing. Breathe. We'll figure this out, I promise. His words, so simple yet profound, drew my gaze back to him. I watched as concern flickered in his eyes, the kind of concern that seemed genuine and untainted by selfish motives. I had nearly forgotten what it felt like to lean on someone else. You don't have to carry this alone, I swallowed hard, grappling with the tempest that raged within me. You don't understand. Ben is my everything. If I fail here, it'll shatter him. I can't bear to see my dreams for him, the life I've imagined, slip away. His gaze softened. And he leaned closer, sincerity illuminating his expression. What if we collaborated on this? You don't have to see my assistance as a burden. It can be a partnership, Clara. I nodded slowly, the stillness of his voice wrapping around my mind like a warm blanket, coaxing my heart to reconsider. Could I let down my walls just a little? The fear of failing again was like a thrumming heartbeat, but the small flicker of hope he offered began to shine a little brighter against the dismal canvas of my reality. As I hesitated, the door to the cafe swung open, and an unexpected visitor stepped inside, capturing everyone's attention. My stomach sank when I recognized her, Sarah, my old roommate from college, looking every bit as polished and successful as I remembered. She was someone I once confided in about my dreams, my aspirations for a life filled with purpose, and now she stood there, wide-eyed and staring, as if she had just stumbled into a world that didn't belong to me. The color drained from my face, dread creeping somewhere deeper within my heart. This was the last person I wanted to face right now, especially with Alex seated beside me, as if he were a lifeline thrown into harsh waters. What if Sarah reached out? What if she turned this into an embarrassing spectacle? Clara. She called out, her voice ringing with disbelief, cutting through the air laden with tension. And as I searched for words to respond, my heart punched in my chest. Was this the moment I'd feared? Was she here to witness me at my lowest, or would she prove to be an ally amid this storm? As the question lingered in the air, I felt the ground shift beneath me in a way I never anticipated, and I realized I wasn't prepared for the revelations about to unfold. The moment hung in the air, laden with unsaid things and fraught with uncertainty. Sarah's presence was a jarring reminder of a past life that felt altogether foreign now. I glanced at Alex, whose brows knitted together in concern, as if sensing the shifting tides of anxiety coursing through me. Clara, is that really you? Sarah stepped closer, her smile tentative but laced with genuine warmth. Yet, it felt like she was peeling back the layers of my carefully constructed facade, revealing all the cracks beneath. Yeah, it's me, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was seeing right through me, past the small triumphs I clung to. Wow, it's been ages, she exclaimed, but I could see her gaze flicker to Ben's empty seat, as if she sensed the absence of the life I had once described to her in vivid detail. How have you been? Just managing, I replied, my stomach twisting as I felt the weight of her scrutiny. The truth was that I was struggling more than I cared to admit, but I wasn't ready to let anyone, especially her, see that. Her smile faltered slightly, and concern settled into the lines of her forehead. I heard about your struggles, she said gently, her tone shifting. I wanted to reach out sooner, Booty didn't know how. You seem to be doing well from what I saw on social media. Yeah, social media, I scoffed bitterly, the words escaping before I could filter them. It's a highlights reel, Sarah. It doesn't show the late nights or the heartbreak. I get it, really, she said, resting her hands on the table, her eyes softening. But you don't have to face it all by yourself. I want to help. That I met her gaze, unsure if her offer was genuine or laced with the condescension I dreaded. Help? How? You've achieved so much. And look at me, I motioned to the remnants of an unkempt existence, the tiredness that clung to my features. I'm a mess. Sometimes, messiness is just the beginning of something new, she replied, her voice unwavering, almost stirring. I'd love to catch up properly. Talk about where you want to go from here. Not the old Clara, but the one you're becoming. I felt my heart skip a beat. Could it be that someone like Sarah, who had always seemed so far ahead in life, was genuinely willing to be an ally now? It felt like a hesitant bloom in the dead of winter, fragile yet hopeful. Before I could respond, however, Alex cleared his throat, and I turned to him. The warmth in his eyes was quickly replaced by a hardness that hadn't been there before, and I felt an odd disconnection forming. Clara, he said cautiously, I know this is unexpected, but you need to protect your vision for Ben. I met his gaze, confusion rippling through me. What do you mean? It's just your connection with her, he nodded towards Sarah, might bring more complications than solutions. You deserve real help, not just a tether back to a time when things weren't the way they are now. The protective undertone in his words filled the air with tension, drawing a line in the sand that I wasn't sure how to navigate. I wanted to believe that Sarah's offer was sincere, that maybe this could lead to something good for me and Ben, but Alex's concern weighed heavily on me. I appreciate your concern, Alex, but she knew me when I had dreams. I could use that perspective. Or it's just going to lead to potential disappointment. He countered, his voice gentle but firm. You have to ensure that anyone who comes back into your life brings something constructive rather than unearthing old wounds. Every word he spoke felt like a punch. My stomach knotted tighter as the reality hit me. I was still forging a new path, teetering on the edge of a precipice and trying to find solid ground. The thought of embracing Sarah's offer was saturated with hope but tainted by fear. Clara, Sarah interjected softly, sensing the turmoil, you don't have to decide right now. Just think about it, okay? I promise, I want to see you thrive. Her sincerity gnawed at me, igniting a flicker of hope amid the thrumming chaos of my heart. Maybe I needed to take a step forward, even if it was. Shrouded in uncertainty. As I drummed my fingers on the table, lost in thought, a text notification lit up my phone, vibrating aggressively against the tabletop. It was from Ben's school, and a cold dread settled over me. I hesitated but opened it, breath catching in my throat as I read, Emergency. Ben is unwell and needs to be picked up immediately. Panic surged through my veins, my head spinning as I locked eyes with Alex, who seemed to read my frantic thoughts. I need to go, I blurted, every fiber in my being urging me to act. Do you want me to come with you? He asked, standing immediately. No, I shook my head, heart racing. I have to do this alone. With urgency propelling me forward, I grabbed my things. I couldn't let the old weight of doubt drag me under. Ben's health was the priority, the sun I revolved around. As I rushed toward the cafe door, Sarah's voice called out. Clara. Just remember, you're stronger than you think, and you don't have to face this alone. Her voice trailed behind me like a warm whisper woven through the storm. But as I pushed through the exit, I turned a corner and my heart sank, seeing the silhouette of a familiar figure before me. My mother stood on the sidewalk, her brow furrowed with a concern I couldn't quite decipher. This was not just a confrontation about the past, this felt monumental, with the stakes too high. With just one glance at her, I felt the impending storm threaten to drown me whole, and the path toward hope seemed frilier than ever. Would she be the lifeline I never expected, or merely a further descent into regret? The wind had picked up, swirling leaves at my feet as I braced myself, caught off guard by my mother's sudden appearance. It felt like old wounds were reopening, raw and unhealed. Our relationship had always been steeped in tension, a tightrope stretched between unresolved issues and the muted longing for understanding. Clara, she said, wrapping her arms around herself, as if to ward off some unseen chill. I saw you with that girl. Sarah. Her brow furrowed deeper, worry etched in the lines around her mouth. Mom, I really don't have time for this, I replied, my voice edged with resentment as I glanced around for any sign of urgency. Ben's at school and he's unwell. I need to get to him. Your son is always going to need you, but so will you need support. You can't do this alone. Her words struck a chord, clear and ringing, yet something in her tone stirred the anxiety that had been festering since the moment I saw Sarah. She moved closer, a softening in her expression. I know I haven't always been there, but what if I tried to be? What if we, Mom, please? I interrupted, the plea escaping with an intensity one couldn't contain. You haven't really been here for me in years. Why now? I'm not saying I'm perfect, she replied, her voice trembling slightly. I'm still figuring out how to be a better mother. I care, Clara. I see you struggling, and I want to help if you'll let me. An unexpected flicker of my childhood came rushing back. My mother, once so vibrant, now fogged by years of decisions that had driven us apart. Could I trust her to be there, to genuinely show up this time? Or was it yet another dilapidated promise? Mom, I just can't right now. I pressed my fingers against my temples, the world around me blurring into a swirl of anxiety. Ben is my priority, then let me drive you. A moment of hesitation passed between us, laden with shared history. Let me help you with him. You shouldn't have to face this all by yourself. It was tempting, the thought of having someone there to share the burden, even someone who had hurt me in the past. But at what cost? The last thing I wanted was to repeat cycles of disappointment. I felt corners of my heart open and close like shutters in a storm, trying to keep the memories of hurt at bay. Fine, I found myself saying, almost against my own will. You can drive me. But this doesn't change anything. I still need to figure everything out. Reluctantly, I let her lead me to her car, each step punctuated by an unspoken understanding that we would be treading on fragile ground. As I settled into the passenger seat, I could feel the tension nestling in the space between us like an intruder. "I'm sorry if I seemed critical of your friend," my mother said quietly as we pulled away from the curb. "People grow apart, but it doesn't mean they can't come back together." It can be a good thing that I resented the way her words felt too much like a call for reconciliation, a reminder of how easy it was for me to wish for what could never be. "You don't know," I replied, the bitterness bubbling on my tongue. "You haven't seen what my life has become." "Then let me in," she said, her voice steady but strangely inviting. "Tell me about it. I want to understand." The silence that hung in the air was heavy but unfamiliar. I swallowed hard, the urge to share rising within me but getting tangled in the fear that her reactions would fall back into the realm of disappointment. But perhaps this was the moment when I could let a little of that pressure escape. "I don't even know where to start," I admitted finally, feeling the tension shift ever so slightly. "How about we talk about Ben?" she suggested, her tone shifting, almost light. "I'd love to hear more about him." As I began to speak, a thread of my memories wrapped around my words, a courageous little boy battling against not only his ailments but the loneliness that had developed from my chaotic life. Despite the emotional shards that accompanied my voice, it felt oddly good to share, but moments later, my phone vibrated sharply, startling us both. The message that popped onto the screen sent ripples of fear coursing through me. "Ben is being observed for further symptoms. Please come as soon as possible." My breath quickened as I felt a surge of panic return. "Mom, I can't." "We're almost there," she interrupted soothingly, trying to catch my eye in my panic. "You know what? What if we think about this as a way for both of us to mend?" Her words wrapped around me, like a delicate thread weaving through my shattered hopes. An unexpected kindness flickered inside the cloud of panic and despair. I nodded slowly, absorbing the moment. "Okay." My voice felt raw, stripped of edges. "Mending. That seems complicated. You're not alone in it." Just as she spoke, my phone vibrated again with another message. A deep-seated dread coiled around my heart as I glanced down, my fingers trembling when I read, "Emergency contact needed immediately. Ben is showing severe distress." With desperation clawing at my throat, I felt the walls around my heart tighten again. "Mom, we need to hurry." My plea hung in the air as she stepped on the gas, the distance to the school seeming impossibly vast. My mind raced with terrifying possibilities and unspoken fears. I was about to face the one challenge I had dreaded the most. Would I be strong enough for Ben if I could barely hold myself together? And what shadow would unfold if I had put my trust in my mother too early? As we flew down the road, an uncomfortable question pierced the chaos within me. Was I ready to offer forgiveness, not just to her but to myself? And would we find a way to stand strong together when everything felt so uncertain, or would this be yet another moment lost to the weight of our past? With every passing second, the landscape blurred into a whirl of colors. The only certainty remained: I was headed toward the brink of an emotional storm, standing precariously on the edge of fear and hope, and I had no idea which way it might turn. The air in the car grew thicker with each mile, filled with an unnameable tension. As my mother drove, her knuckles whitened around the steering wheel, her focus unwavering. I could barely catch a breath, the weight of the messages pressing down like a lead blanket. Ben's struggles echoed in my mind. How had it come to this? Each moment lost seemed to unravel the hope I clung to. "Clara," my mother's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts, tentative yet firm. "You need to breathe. Well, get there. It's going to be okay." Her words were both a balm and a jagged stone, managing to ease some of my panic while also reminding me yet again how little I wanted to rely on her. She had said she wanted to help, but could she really? I felt my chest tighten as another message buzzed, but this time I let it go unanswered. I couldn't afford to crumble now, not in front of her. "So, what is Ben's favorite game nowadays?" she attempted, her voice inviting yet heavy with uncertainty, a strange mix of motherly warmth and her own insecurities. "I remember he loved superheroes." A smile flickered to life briefly as I recalled those moments of laughter playing dress up, the two of us fabricating entire worlds of capes and villains. The laughter was a brief gust of fresh air in a room lined with dread. He still loves superheroes, I said, my voice low. But lately, he's been getting into board games. They help him focus. There was space for her question to settle. I wish I could know him better, she said softly. Maybe if you'd let me come over sometime. My heart pounded in my throat. Letting her into our small world felt like tearing open a wound that hadn't yet scabbed over. Let's focus on getting to him first, I replied sharply, though the softness of her eyes made me feel guilty. Perhaps my walls were coming up too strongly and too swiftly, a defensive shield built over years, and just then, one of those small moments of unexpected kindness occurred. I caught sight of a scruffy dog sitting on the side of the road, tail wagging despite the rust-colored fur dusting his paws. A woman nearby fumbled for change, her face strained, but the dog was gleeful and oblivious to the world's troubles. In that brief moment, my heart felt lighter, touched with an old joy. What's wrong? My mother noticed my gaze. Nothing. Just I smiled, pointing to the dog. That little guy looks happy despite everything. You see it too? Yes, I do. She looked over, her expression softening. Sometimes it truly is the little things, little things. How foolishly naive that felt. My world had spun out of my control, yet here we were, grasping at fleeting moments of happiness as if they could anchor us against the tide. But Ben needed me. My heart thudded violently against my ribcage, a backlash of nerves, and for every second I wasn't by his side, that thump echoed louder, reminding me of my failures and fears. A siren wailed in the distance, and a shiver cascaded through me. Mom. Panic tinged my voice, spurring her to speed up. What if it's not just a checkup? What if, Clara, let's take it one step at a time. She placed a calming hand on my knee. I couldn't help but flinch at her touch, but somewhere deep inside me, there was a flicker of comfort beneath that flinch. You can always take a walk down memory lane later. Think of Ben, she urged gently. The road ahead twisted and turned, and just as we approached an intersection lined with school banners, my phone buzzed one more time. With mounting apprehension, I glanced down. There it was, an ominous text. Please come in immediately. We've called the specialist at IT. Felt as though the world skewed on its axis. My breath hitched, and I felt my stomach twist, a response to the growing dread that threatened to swallow me whole. I stared wide-eyed at my mother, the glyphs of worry etched on my face. Mom, what if we're here? She interrupted her own thought, her voice heavy with urgency. Fear and determination danced in her features. Well, get through this. The car screeched to a halt, and I jerked forward, my heart pounding harder than ever. I looked into my mother's eyes, the weight of years between us shimming in the air. In that moment, an uneasy alliance began to form in my heart. An unsteady truce fought amidst a maelstrom of doubt. With trepidation clawing at me, I opened the car door, ready to step into the worst and most crucial fight of my life. The distance from the car to the school door seemed monumental. The dread throbbed in my chest, but I couldn't face it alone. Not anymore, and just as I prepared to cross the threshold, I heard a familiar voice call out my name from behind. It was Sarah, breathless but concerned, rushing toward us. Clara? I tried calling. I'm so sorry. The off-guarding leverage of her unexpected arrival sparked something a flurry of emotions I couldn't quite tame. I froze, caught between the two worlds I had tried so hard to keep separate, each with their own tumult of feelings. In that moment, as uncertainty loomed and every heartbeat echoed with dread, I had to choose. Would I allow these connections to merge and intertwine, or would I slam the door shut on the possibility of reconciliation once more? Everything was about to change, and with it, again, uncertainty intertwined with hope. I could only venture forth, teetering on the ledge of fear, ready to take my next leap. The sunlight cut through the trees lining the schoolyard, and each beam felt like a spotlight illuminating the fragility of my situation. As Sarah rushed toward us, her face painted with concern, I felt an unfamiliar pang of both relief and anxiety. She had always been my safety net and anchor on stormy seas, but right now, the tide was rising, and I wasn't sure how long she'd hold. Clara, what's going on? I heard about Ben, she panted, her brow knitted tightly with worry. It was as if she had stepped into a world that I was desperate to protect. The walls around my heart shifted, and the instinct for self-preservation battled with the need to pull her in closer. That I opened my mouth, words teetering on the edge of release. "We're here for his appointment. They called in a specialist." The truth landed in the air, heavy and unsettling, invoking that familiar dread that suffocated hope. A look of understanding passed between us, felt but rarely spoken. "Oh, Clara," her voice was gentle, but I saw the worry deepen in her eyes as she glanced at my mother, who had moved to stand quietly beside me. "Do you want me to wait with you?" Sarah offered, her eagerness shining like a beacon. I could see the warmth and kindness flooding back into me, but a part of me hesitated. Could I really allow her into this tangled mess? My mother, always attuned to my vulnerabilities, placed a hand on my arm. "It's up to you, sweetheart," she reassured me softly, though I could hear her own doubts lurking in the background. In that moment, the door to uncertainty swung open, memories of shared laughter and painful absences washing over me in waves. I thought about all the times Sarah had shown up from fighting my battles, mixed up in my chaos, and offering her support with unwavering faith. "Yes," I finally breathed, the word a small lifeline in a vast ocean of despair. "Please stay, Sarah." As she settled in beside us, I could feel the weight of the world shift just a little. Maybe hope wasn't a faraway gleam on the horizon, perhaps it was right there, nestled among the people who dared to remain close despite the storms. However, the moment felt precarious, too, like walking on a tightrope where every step could send me hurtling down into uncertainty. The three of us moved toward the school entrance as if walking through an unmarked minefield, the destination shrouded in ambiguity. Inside, the sterile smell of antiseptic mingled with anxiety and the low hum of conversations drifting through the hallways filled with students. Faces zipped past us, unburdened by the weight of adult worries. I tightened my grip on Sarah's hand, and in that comforting gesture, I found a flicker of resilience. "Clara." Another voice broke through the fog of my thoughts. It was Mrs. Grayson from the administrative office, her face a mix of sympathy and concern. "I didn't know you were here. Is everything okay?" My heart raced at the sight of so many questioning eyes. "We're waiting for Ben," I whispered, the sheer weight of my emotions clenching my chest. She nodded, her expression shifting perceptibly. "Just know that you're not alone in this. The entire faculty cares about him." That was a small balm on a wound so deep I could barely fathom. I forced a smile through the chaos, hoping it looked a fraction of the assurance I longed to feel. But just as I prepared to step further into that rallying support, another buzz resonated in my pocket. With an unsteady hand, I retrieved my phone, reading the new message that flashed ominously against the background of hopeful reassurances. It was from the specialist's office. "We need to discuss Ben's test results as soon as you arrive. Please make your way to the consultation room immediately." A tidal wave of fear surged through me, crashing against the fragile barricade of hope I had been so timidly rebuilding. My heart thundered in my chest as I turned towards Sarah and my mother, the ground beneath me crumbling. "Guys, they want to talk right now." My voice trembled, and I could see the concern flare in both their eyes, a mirror image of my own anguish. "Let's go together," Sarah urged, squeezing my hand with a fierce determination that filled me with courage. There was urgency in her voice, but her presence wrapped around me like a warm embrace, shielding me from the looming dread that threatened to pull me under. In that moment, as we approached the consultation room, the weight of my turmoil hung heavily in the air. The door loomed ahead, a barrier holding the answers I desperately craved but feared to uncover. Just as we were about to step through the threshold and the world began to blur around the edges, a scream echoed from down the hallway, slicing through the air and my nerve. The chaotic panic erupted around us as a student sprinted past, their face awash with distress. In that moment of chaos, reality shattered. My instincts kicked in, and I turned toward where the cry emanated from, fighting the urge to recoil while a new fear struck deeper than I had ever imagined possible. Heart pounding, I whispered to the universe, "Not today. Not today." The door to the consultation room waited, but now it wasn't just about answers for Ben. It felt like everything I had ever shielded from, every fear I had buried deep within, surged to the surface, revealing a truth more terrifying than I could imagine. There, I stood, buried beneath uncertainty and hope, just outside the door to countless possibilities beyond my control. As the panicked shouts echoed through the hallway, time stretched like an elastic band, bending but not breaking under the weight of my uncertainty. The atmosphere shifted, thickening with fear and anticipation. I could feel the pulse of adrenaline racing through my veins, a stark reminder of my vulnerability, yet within it flickered the flicker of resolve ignited by Sarah's grip on my hand. "Clara, focus on us," she urged in a hushed tone, her eyes steady despite the chaos swirling around us. I turned back to the consultation room, the door still ajar, a space filled with the weight of all the unspoken fears. But the growing noise from the hallway, a frantic melody of shouts and desperate footsteps, started to weave a new thread of terror into my already frayed emotions. In that moment, I couldn't tell where my anxieties about Ben ended and my fears about the loud screams began. "Stay here. I'll go check it out," my mother said suddenly, her maternal instincts kicking in like a protective force field as she pulled her phone from her pocket, ready to document details or call for help. The look exchanged between Sarah and me was a silent discourse filled with concern, trying to decipher the degree of threat we might be facing in the unpredictable environment. The sound of footsteps retreated and then came rushing closer, drowning out what semblance of composure I had managed to gather. Then, a figure emerged from the fray. It was Mia, a classmate of Ben's, her face pale and her gaze wide with terror. "Clara. You need to come, it's Ben." She gasped, her breath ragged with panic. The world warping around me went still for a heartbeat, a silence dipping into the depths of my stomach. "What do you mean, Mia?" My voice barely broke free as dread coiled tight in my chest. He collapsed. They're taking him to the nurse." The words tumbled out, laden with urgency, my worst fears unraveling like thread from a skein. "Ben." The name shot from my lips, raw and desperate, slicing through the haze of anxiety. It was as if the surrounding chaos had been designed to blur the lines between safety and catastrophe, and now I was teetering dangerously on that edge. "Clara, wait." Sarah's voice broke the spell, her grip tightening around my arm. "We need to handle this mindfully. Let's go together." Despite everything swirling inside me, I nodded, the bond between us a tether pulling me away from the brink of despair. As we rushed down the hall, dread turned to determination with every stride, fueled by adrenaline and necessity. Thoughts raced through my mind. What if he was hurt? What if this was something we hadn't anticipated? Each possibility morphed into a new layer of anxiety, accumulating like bricks on my chest, each heartbeat a reminder of his fragility. Upon reaching the nurse's office, I was met with a scene that felt both surreal and painfully real. Dozens of students and teachers surrounded the doorway, all eyes filled with sympathy and anxiety, forming a shifting perimeter that rendered me helpless. "Clara." Mrs. Grayson spotted me, her expression grave yet softening at the sight of my overwhelmed face. "He's inside, Clara. The nurse is with him." An overwhelming swell of emotions threatened to drown me. I took a step forward before the air turned electric, charged with the weight of unknowing. I glanced at Sarah. Would I be able to face whatever was happening inside, or would this moment shatter my already fragile fortress? Just then, a door swung open, and a tall figure stepped out. Coach Anderson's brow was furrowed deeply, sweat glistening on his forehead, eyes frantically observing the students gathered like an unsettled sea. "We need to clear the way," he called, his voice firm but strained. "Is he okay?" I blurted, the question escaping before I could filter it through the fog of tension. "Ben is stable, but he needs to be transported," Coach Anderson replied, his resolve briefly faltering as he glanced inside the office. "He's been through a lot. A lot more than I think any of us understood." The mention of his transport sent shards of unease slicing through me. What could that mean? Why was he being taken away? I grabbed Sarah's hand, the warmth grounding me for a fleeting moment while panic throbbed beneath the surface like a wound still closing. "Let's wait by the entrance," Sarah suggested, her steady voice a reminder of the love we stood upon, permitting strength in the storm. As we stepped back, I caught sight of my mother, who had rejoined us, her eyes wide and shimmering with concern. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but then my phone buzzed again, surprisingly jarring me from the whirlwind of emotions. With shaky fingers, I checked the screen, my heart sinking even deeper as I read the message from the specialist's office. "Clara, please report to my office. We need to discuss Ben's case with you." Time stood still as the ground beneath me seemed to shift once more, a chasm now yawning wide. My mind screamed in chaos. Is this an emergency? What could possibly be wrong? I felt the weight of the world pressing down as a wave of dread crashed over me anew, and suddenly, the consultation room didn't just hold my fears about Ben, it held the potential of hopelessness that could forever change everything I cared about. Clara? Sarah's voice snapped my attention back, and I saw the warmth of hope still flickering in her gaze. It's going to be all right. But the smile I attempted to offer felt precarious at best. The minutes stretched into eternity, and just as I prepared to race towards the door to discover both the fate of my brother and the urgency of the specialist's message, a blood-curdling scream rang out once more. Help! Help! Once again the chaos flared, reverberating through my thoughts. But this time something inside me shifted. Beneath the anxiety and fear lay a growing sense of resolve. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't face it alone. As I stepped towards the unknown, fear still gripped me, but so did determination. And silently, I prayed that perhaps hope would hold its ground, whatever the outcome. The chaotic symphony of voices filled the air, an unsettling mix of uncertainty and alarm that enveloped me like a thick fog. I turned back to the nurse's office, the buzz of my phone still echoing in my mind, the specialist's message etched into my thoughts, an ominous reminder of the weight I carried. Just as I was about to step forward, a firm hand landed gently on my shoulder. Clara, we need to breathe. It was Mrs. Grayson, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the frantic energy pulsating around us. She pulled me away slightly, scrutinizing my face as if reading the fear etched in my expression. Your brother needs you to be strong, and so do you, but strong felt like an impossible mountain to climb. He needs me? I echoed, almost in disbelief. He's the one. My voice trembled as the enormity of the situation clawed at me, threatening to crush what little composure I had left. Listen, she said softly, right now, panic won't help him. He's in good hands. What you need to do is stay together with the people you trust. That's what gives you strength. Before I could answer, another sharp scream erupted from the hallway, making the collective breaths around us hitch. It was followed by a flurry of frantic footsteps, pain palpable in the rising tide of voices. The weight of it bore down on me, yet, amid the chaos, a flicker of hope ignited, a reminder that we weren't alone in this. I turned back, the urgency fueling a decision already forming in my mind. That I have to go to him, I said, steeling my resolve. I can't just wait here, Clara. Mrs. Grayson started, but I was already pushing through the tide of anxious faces, instinct guiding me. I knew I had to see him, to be near him even just for a moment. The pull was magnetic, drawing me closer to the turmoil unfolding behind that door. As I arrived at the threshold, breathless and trembling, I gathered my strength and pushed through. The sight before me was scarier than I could have anticipated. Ben lay there, his color pale against the sterile whiteness of the nurse's office. Medical equipment hummed ominously around him, tubes and wires threading through a web of our shared world. Ben, I whispered, my heart breaking at the sight, desperate to reach him but feeling like I was tethered from doing so. The nurse looked up, a gentle yet authoritative presence. Clara, you can't disturb him right now, she cautioned, stepping closer to my brother, ensuring he was comfortable and stabilized. We need to monitor his vitals, but you can talk to him while I work, okay? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat as I edged closer, my voice trembling. Ben, I'm here. I don't know what's happening, but you're going to be all right. Each word felt inadequate, a poor shield against the swells of uncertainty that washed over me. I reached for his hand, instinctively resting my palm against his cool skin. Beneath the hum of machines, I heard him breathe, a soft, steady rhythm that reassured me, if only for a moment. Please, just hold on, I pleaded, tears welling in my eyes. You're going to be okay. I promise I won't leave you. Then, just when I thought I could breathe, the door swung open again, and in strode a figure I didn't expect to see. It was my father, his presence loomingly unfamiliar, breaking through the tides of chaos like a ship navigating a storm. Anger and disbelief ignited in my chest. Why was he here? Didn't he walk away from this family long ago? Clara, he said cautiously, his tone carefully measured. I heard what happened. Is he all right? The sincerity in his eyes surprised me, but it was overshadowed by years of absence and unexplained hurt. Do you honestly care? I snapped, rage saying all the things my heart had buried. "Where were you when he needed you the most? Now is not the time," he said tightly, stepping closer to Ben. "I need to be here for him." The stark contrast between our reactions was enough to freeze the moment around us. As the nurse continued her rapid assessments, I felt the tightening of uncertainty in my gut. Could we really bridge the chasm of our past in this moment, or were we reliving the same story with the same unpardonable distance lingering beneath our shared urgency? "I'm afraid you can't stay much longer," the nurse interrupted gently, leading my father back a step. "We really need to focus on Ben." That I shot him a glance, a mix of anger and confusion morphing my perspective. Would I even allow him to share this moment with us? But before I could respond, my phone buzzed again in my pocket, insistent and urgent. Fumbling to pull it out, I was met with an incoming video call. It was from an unknown number, but the urgency sparked something deep within me. Should I answer it? My heart raced anew, a million things racing through my mind, and just as I raised the phone to my ear, my breath hitching, the room filled with another piercing scream from the hallway, this one laced with unmistakable dread. Without thinking, I sprinted to the doorway, ready to confront whatever awaited us, my heart pounding painfully against my ribcage. In that moment, whatever hope had begun to blossom felt like it was being swallowed once again in the darkness. As I turned the corner, the sight that met me ignited my chest with disbelief and dread, spiraling me into a reality I never imagined facing. What awaited beyond the walls of this sanctuary could change everything, and I had no idea if I was ready for the reckoning. The world around me faded into an unbearable blur, the chaos amplifying the pounding of my heart. I took a deep breath, an effort to clear my mind, but the urgency rooted in my veins proved insurmountable. I had to find Ben. My little boy was inside, and every instinct urged me to break through the chaos and reach him. As I rushed around the corner, I caught sight of something that made my stomach drop. The nurse's office door stood wide open, revealing figures cloaked in urgency and fear. The solemn faces turned toward me, and it felt as if time itself had halted. I approached slowly, instinctively terrified of what awaited me inside, but the call of my heart pressed me onward. When I stepped through the entrance, everything changed. Ben lay on the cot, eyes fluttering as if he were fighting to stay awake. Panic filled the air, surging and receding like waves crashing against a rocky shore. The sight of my son, pale and vulnerable, pulled at my very core. He looked so small within the cocoon of medical equipment, a world within a world, struggling against an unseen force. "Ben." I called, my voice breaking as I rushed to his side. He turned his head slightly, eyes meeting mine, and in that brief moment, we connected on a level deeper than words. My hands trembled as I reached for his tiny fingers, willing every ounce of strength to flow from me to him. "I'm here, sweetheart. I've got you." I leaned down, pressing my lips against his forehead, and felt the chill ripple through me. When I pulled back, the nurse stepped closer, her expression serious yet compassionate. "Clara, we're doing everything we can. He's stable, but we need to transport him to the hospital for further evaluation." My heart sank deeper. "Why? What is happening? Please, just tell me." I pleaded, my emotions bubbling to the surface. "We're not sure yet," she replied carefully. "We need to get him monitored properly. It could be a number of things, but he's in the best hands." A wave of nausea washed over me at the thought of my baby being whisked away. "No. I can't let him go." Desperation clawed its way up through my chest, and I glanced back at my father, whose sudden intrusion felt like a shadow over the fragility of this moment. "Clara," he said softly, but his words floated by, unheard. In the face of uncertainty, the memories of his absence, the disappointments and the silence, churned violently within me. I couldn't let this lead me back to a place of hurt. "I can't," I whispered, feeling on the verge of trembling collapse. But then something unexpected happened. A faint whisper fluttered through the din of chaos, a surge of my own resolve pushing through the fear and despair. My head snapped back toward Ben. "No matter what, I won't let you go through this alone." Feeling the warmth of unity and purpose from Sarah's steady presence by my side, I remembered why we fought, why we kept pushing forward. Without thinking, I turned to my father with newfound clarity. "You can help," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You need to be here for him now. That he blinked at me, surprise mingling with regret. What? Clara, Ben needs both of us. We can't allow the past to dictate what he deserves now. And that was the truth. No moment could be wasted on old grievances. When our child stood at the precipice of distress, the door swung open again, and into the room stepped Alex, urgency coating his expression as his eyes locked onto mine. I got here as fast as I could. What's happening? There's a transportation taking him to the hospital, I said, barely registering the insight in his eyes that he felt the very same worry I harbored. They don't know what's wrong. We'll figure it out, he promised, stepping beside me, every fiber of his being vibrating with intention. You're not alone. For an instant, a pulse of warmth shot through me, echoing against my fear, a firm reminder that whatever path loomed ahead was not mine to traverse alone. Clara, my father interjected, his voice cracking with uncertainty, I know I haven't been there, but I want to be here now. I promise. My chest tightened at the weight of those words. Could I trust him? And yet, in that pivotal moment, I recognized a flicker of hope igniting deep within me. Maybe this was a chance for something deeper, a convergence of past regrets and budding possibilities. All right, I said, my voice a whisper engulfed in vulnerability. But you need to prove that you mean what you say. This is about Ben. The words hung heavy, yet there was something inexplicably freeing about establishing boundaries, a sense of power and a pledge that we were all here to heal. With each moment, Ben grew more restless, a low murmur slipping from his lips as I leaned closer. Stay with me, buddy. We're right here. The nurse stepped forward again, resolute. We need to move him now. Can you all follow along to the hospital? I nodded, my decision firming, but uncertain of how we would all negotiate the upcoming storm. As they prepared Ben for transport, I felt a wash of impatience bubble beneath my skin. Time felt impossibly slow, yet the urgency within surged forward. I'm not leaving him, I vowed, clutching his hand as they gently moved him onto the stretcher. As we made our way into the hallway, a whirlwind of emotions enveloped me. Behind me, I felt Alex's presence steadying beside Sarah's warmth and my father's arm gently brushing my shoulder. We were an odd lineup, strangers amidst a frantic world, but somehow, we had forged a hesitant unity. Resilience was born from vulnerability, and I could finally see the horizon glimmering ahead. As we stepped out into the cool breeze, anticipation and uncertainty intertwined with hope, mirroring the clouds drifting overhead. The lights of the ambulance flickered, inviting us forward. And just as we reached the doors, a familiar excitement swirled in my chest. Was this a connection I could nurture? Could we truly be here for Ben the way we had failed to be for our own hearts? The siren screamed into a crescendo as we piled into the back of the ambulance, the four of us squeezing in tightly around the stretcher. In that moment, one thought rang poignant and clear: no matter the outcome, together we could navigate this storm. We were bound by love, not just blood. The ambulance rumbled into motion, and my heart raced as I locked eyes with my father, then Alex, finally resting on Sarah, each of us breathing in the tension that weighed down the air. United in this moment, I felt fragile hope blooming anew. We each had our battles, histories strewn with desire and regret, but in this journey toward the unknown, we could rewrite our destinies, holding Ben close, prayers whispered to each other, and certainty poised at our fingertips. Together, we would redefine our paths as a family, clawing our way through darkness toward whatever light awaited. Underneath all the noise, beneath the fears and chaos consumed in uncertain breaths, I found the strength to forge ahead. That moment sparked within me a flame igniting hope anew. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, I whispered, a promise to my son and a foreshadowing of an unbreakable bond rekindled amidst adversity. As the lights flashed ahead, cutting through the night, I closed my eyes, ready for the world to unfold. Nothing could prepare me for the unexpected, but standing together, I understood not just with my heart, but with every ounce of my being that love could conquer and mend even the most fragmented souls. And as the ambulance sped towards the horizon, I realized it was just the beginning of our story.